Hi everyone. So this video recording is actually how to read an assignment brief. May sound really straightforward, really simple, but it's amazing how many of my students don't do this. So I thought I would record this video to go through all the parts of an assignment brief, what to look out for, so hopefully you can achieve that high grade. So teachers finished all the teaching. They've gone through everything. They've said to you, right, here's the assignment brief. What do you need to do? It's amazing how many of my students go and put that assignment brief straight in their bag. Can I go? Can I go now? No, stop, wait. This is your time now to find out exactly what you need to do. Please read the brief. It's amazing how many of my students don't read the brief. They wait till they've got home. They wait, it's due in 2 weeks' time, 2 or 3 days before the assignment's due in. They actually retrieve it out the bag all crumpled and look at it and think, what do I need to do? So when your teacher gives you that assignment brief there and then in the lesson, start to look through it. Don't go to the criteria at the back and think, yep, no need to know. Look at it properly. We're going to do that in a moment. Okay? Understand the key terms and command words. What do I mean about this? Things like if it says evaluate, describe, illustrate, what do these words actually mean? If you don't know, you won't be able to answer that part of the brief. Make sure you understand them. Ensure you know what you need to produce. It's amazing how many of my students have come to me with a Word document, handed it in, and I've said, you're supposed to be doing me a PowerPoint presentation. You're supposed to be giving me a leaflet. You're supposed to be giving me a lab report. Where's your lab book? Make sure you know what you've got to produce. And if you don't know, if you don't understand what it's asking you to do, ask your tutor. Now is the time. You've got that brief. Sometimes the briefs can be 2 to 4 weeks, sometimes even longer before you have to hand them in. But your tutor is not supposed to now give you any more teaching. Once they've handed that in, it is now time for you to go away, do your further research, look at gathering all your notes together, carrying out some extra additional reading around the topic so that you can then produce that report. Your tutor next lesson will probably be going on to teaching you for the next assignment, trusting that you know what you need to do. So this is the time when you've just been given that assignment to ask your tutor for any clarification. So let's have a look. Reading the brief. Now this is an example of the scenario that you would get for Unit 8, Understanding Body Systems, Human Body Systems, and this is the first assignment, which is all about the musculoskeletal system. All this writing that you see before you is actually the vocational scenario that they give you as part of the brief. Now, a lot of students ignore this. They're not bothered about it. They don't understand the importance of it. So I'm just going to go through it a little bit with you now so you can see how you can use it to help you. So the title of this assignment is Understanding the Impact of Disorders of the Musculoskeletal System and the Associated Corrective Treatments. It's the first assignment, Assignment A, out of a series of 3. So the scenario is you are employed by a large sport and fitness company as a trainee healthcare assistant within their occupational health department. Your employers are concerned that a significant number of working days are lost due to employers' absence through musculoskeletal disorders. They hope by liaising with other healthcare professionals, the occupational health department will be able to create support programs that, and this is the key bit, offer employees' education and guidance. You are producing something for the employees, not for your fellow scientists, not for the management. It's not a laboratory report. This is something that's going to be used by the employees to educate them and provide guidance. So it needs to be clear. It needs to give them the information that they need to be able to make choices. That information has to be regarding the structure and function of the musculoskeletal system. The treatments available. So you are going to be having to talk about how the musculoskeletal system is made, its structure and function, why we have it, what it's there for, the treatments available, and as it says there, the effective clinical management of common musculoskeletal disorders. So if you've got one of these disorders, how you can manage it, how you can treat it, but if it's ongoing, if it's something like rheumatoid arthritis, how you can limit the effects of it in your day-to-day life. The company's management team hope that this initiative will reduce absences by expediting employers' return to work in the shortest possible time. Your role is to carry out research in order to produce information that will be used to educate. Again, they're reiterating there that you are going to be educating the employees. So you are assuming from that the employees do not have knowledge and experience, and therefore you're going to be very clear in your descriptions, in your explanations, and assuming that they had no prior knowledge. Now, key terms and command words. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these. It'd take me too long. You'd be bored to death. But these I copied straight off the BTEC Pearson's website, where I looked under the specification. Now you may be using a different exam board, but if you go on the exam board's own website, find your subject, find the specification linked to your subject, then usually it's either at the very start of the specification or at the end, depending on how they've structured it, you should be able to find these key terms. And then from that, understand exactly what they're after. So for instance, here, analyse is learners will present the outcome of methodical and detailed examination, either by breaking down a topic or a theme in order to interpret and study the relationships between the parts. So if we were asked to do that for the musculoskeletal system, it may be analysing the effect of a musculoskeletal system on the day-to-day life of a person. So looking at the relationship between that, how it affects the body, and then how they affect their overall life, quality of life. So usually for the analysis, they tend to be more the merit level questions or sometimes the distinction. Whereas some of the others will maybe more linked to the pass criteria. Here again we have some more. So apply, assess, calculate. And here we've got a comparison. So here it's saying comparison, identify the main factors between two or more situations or items. So for instance, the one we're going to be looking at the moment can be comparing treatments, and you'll be asked to explain the similarities, differences, advantages and disadvantages. If you don't include that, then you're not likely to get past the criteria that has been allocated to. Again, here's some more. So we've got describe. Now describe or discuss or explain tend to be more for the past criteria, whereas evaluate definitely tends to be the distinction criteria. So as you can see here, for the evaluation, looking at strengths, weaknesses, advantages, disadvantages, alternative actions. So is this something else you could do? Relevance, significance, cost implications, time implications. Does it require additional training? Does it require additional resources? So they're the sorts of things they'd expect you to include in an evaluation. So make sure you know these keywords. Sometimes your colleges or school will provide you these in your initial handbook that you would have got right at the very first start of term. Refer back to them. Make sure you know what you're actually being asked to do. Again, finally, some more. Again, the ones I talked about before, which was explain or justify. So this is in a justification. That's where you're being asked to give your opinion. But usually in that you're supposed to give evidence to support your justification. So if you've been asked to say which is the most important or relevant treatment, or which is the best method, why? What have you made that judgment on? So how do I use this knowledge? Now I know I know a scenario, I know these key terms, so what am I going to do with them? How can I use these to help me? Well, now you go on to the next part of the assignment brief, which is the actual task. What is it actually asking me to do? So first thing, it says using your lesson notes and research. It's amazing how many of my students don't use any of the notes that I got them to make in class. You know, and quite often I'll have said, this is key. I expect to see something like this, a diagram like this, or an explanation like this, or for your distinction, you must include, if we've had a big discussion about the advantages, disadvantages, I'd be expecting people to make notes of those and then to include that in their report. So make sure you listen out for your teacher telling you those key bits of information. Or they may direct you to websites or to resources that you can use. They may have pointed you out, they may have set up systems like Leaflet or on Teams on your the note board. Lots and lots of resources all through Moodle. Whatever your platform that your school uses, make sure you use it. All right. So you're being asked to use your notes and use those notes that you've carried out to look at these disorders, and you've been asked to produce a report and information leaflets, posters for the employees. Okay, so you've been asked to make a report, that's the key thing, but to substantiate that, to support that, information leaflets and posters. And that report leaflet have to include an illustrated explanation on the structures and functions of the skeleton, or the musculoskeletal system rather. Illustrated, so that means they expect pictures, they expect diagrams. Make sure you include them. It's got to include functions of the skeleton. Why is the skeleton there? 6 major joint types. They've told you how many. They've specified how many. You've got to say where they're found, what a movement it allows, and its role. They have put the key information in there for you. All right. It then says you've got to give a detailed description of 3 disorders. Again, they've given you the number of disorders they want you to look at. And they've asked you to then talk about the corrective treatments related to these disorders. And if you're not sure, they've actually given you some examples. Now you can use these, or you could go and find other examples of your own. Then for this particular assignment, they ask you to make a comparison of how those conditions affect movement. And they want you to talk, and they say you must refer to specific movement type, joint type, muscle groups. They're giving you the detail there. If you just shove this assignment in your bag and just looked at the past criteria or later on, you wouldn't get all this information. So when you get the assignment brief, where I've highlighted these things in red, you can do the things, highlight the key words, highlight the key bits in that assignment brief. Scribble all over it. Whatever your teacher, if she's giving you, he or she is giving you the information, write all over it. This is your one chance to make sure you really know what you need to do. So it says explain the importance, compare how the disorders affect this function. Then you've got to compare the corrective treatments. So looking at the treatments for each disorder, compare them. Look at how they differ. All right, and if there's several different treatments for each for a particular disorder in this case, if there's several different treatments, why would you choose one over the other? So for instance, rheumatoid arthritis, you could have a variety of treatments. You could have looking at different drug regimes, so biologics, looking at steroid treatments. You could be looking at immunosuppressants. You can be looking at physiotherapy, occupational therapy. Look at all those, how they complement each other, but then also how they differ. And then the final part in this particular task is an evaluation of that musculoskeletal disorder and looking at how it affects how the treatment affects all those different things such as the bones, the joints, the movements, how that will affect the muscle, the normal movement. So you're going for the distinction part, you'd be expecting to go into a lot of detail here, but then evaluate the treatments and it gives you a list. Physical, physiological and social effect on health, including any limitations or drawbacks. Usually, whatever the assignment is, they will give you the detail of what they expect you to include. Whether it's a lab report on a titration experiment, for a pass, for instance, they may just ask you to be looking at carrying out the titration, doing the calculations and giving your results, where for the analysis for the merit they'd be expecting you to analyse it, and for the distinction they'd be asking you to evaluate. Make sure you understand the difference between them. And another part that's quite often missed is the people who've written these assignments don't want you to fail. They want you to make sure that you include everything right from the start. Wouldn't it be great to have right first time, because then you can improve and get the next grade up with your resubmission if you're allowed. So they give you a checklist. Read that checklist. Again, explain the functions of the musculoskeletal system. 6 major types. Describe 3 disorders. Compare the disorders. Evaluate the treatments. Very basic detail, doesn't give you all the detail that you've just had, but at least you can be ticking them off when you know that you've completed them. And finally, on that checklist, it always says sources of information must be referenced. Now, your college or school will have said to you what system they like you to use, whether it's Harvard referencing or something else. I'll be making another video about how to Harvard reference. So make sure you include the references. If you don't include the references, there's no way you'll get a distinction. And for most colleges and schools, you won't even get the merit. And you must use the correct scientific terminology. So, assessment criteria. This is the bit my students would normally go to straight away and just look at that and not look at the rest. Let's see how it differs. Well, we've got to explain the function of the musculoskeletal system, describe the effect of disorders, but it doesn't give a number. Remember, you have got to explain 6 joints, you've got to explain 3 disorders. Compare how disorders affect the muscles and the role of corrective treatments. Again, doesn't tell you how many. And then evaluate the effect of corrective treatments associated with a musculoskeletal disorder. That's the only one where it actually suggests that it's just one that you actually have to look at for the distinction. So just by going to the assessment criteria, you can see how much information you would miss. So is that it then? Now I can shove it in my bag. Is that it? I can go home now. Miss, please. Hang on a minute. Saw some more information on there. Quite often on the assignment briefs, it will tell you places you can go to, other sites. For instance, on this one, it even directs you to a YouTube video. All right, your teacher, like I said, quite often will have said put stuff on Moodle or on whatever platform that you're using, whether it's Google Teams, Google yeah, or Teams or Google or whatever platform you're using, they will have put resources. They would have collated resources for when they're preparing your lessons, and they will share those with you. All right. Don't forget to go to use the LRC. Don't forget to go on Google Scholar and look up different references. All right. Don't just go, which you always do, to Wikipedia. Ignore that. That's not acceptable. Go to the resources where you've been directed. Now I can put it in my bag. Hang on. One last thing. Or so you think. Date. What's the date today? When does it have to be in for? Make sure you have a note of that. Make sure it's on your phone. Make sure it's on your phone a week before, 3 days before, so you don't forget you're not doing it the night before. How am I going to hand it in? Do I hand it in a plastic wallet to my teacher? I won't accept them unless they're in a plastic wallet if they're handing me a hard copy, because it goes straight in a folder so I don't lose it. Not every teacher insists on that, but make sure you know what your teacher does. The font. Sometimes your college or school will specify the font. Sometimes they'll specify whether it's going to be handed in a particular format, whether it's going to be handed in electronically, whether it's going to be handed in typed, or whether you're allowed to handwrite something. A lot of places won't accept it if it's handwritten, whereas some places insist that at least one of your assignments is handwritten. Where do I hand it in? Am I going to hand it in electronically? If so, do I hand it in through assignment on Teams? Do I hand it in by an email? Do I send it in through a chat? Do I have to hand it in? Do I have to put it in a certain box? Make sure you know, so you're not running around on the day trying to work out how to hand it in. Any additional paperwork? Quite often you'll have to have an observation report. If you've done a lab study, you may have to hand in your lab book to show what you did when you did it. You may have to have additional photos. You may have to have your chromatography paper that you've done your experiments on. You may have to show diagrams, posters. Make sure you've included everything. All right. Remember, it's not always going to be a Word document. Quite often we have to make sure that you do a spread of different types of assignments throughout the 2 years that you're doing your course, or 1 year, to make sure that you're demonstrating and developing certain skills. So make sure you know what you've got to hand in, how you hand it in. And will I get a receipt? If you're handing it electronically, normally it's automatically registered. But some schools, colleges will give you a receipt if you hand in a paper copy. So you've proven that you've handed it in. And finally, if you're not sure, ask the tutor. Now I know this is a very long video, but I hope that it's helped you. Please give me any feedback. If you've got other assignments that you're not sure what they're asking, pop in a question in the actual comments box and I'll see if I can help you. Anyway, hope it's helped. Bye.